what we are all here to see is the introduction to Rovo and building custom Rovo agents with Forge. We're very pleased to have with us Neil Mansilla, who will be doing the presentation as well as a demo, and we will be able to field some Q&A afterwards. So I think that basically brings us to Neil, and feel free to sort of get started there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. I'm very pleased to join this ACE virtually, and let me get myself situated here. One moment. Okay. Brendan, can you verify you can see the screen okay?
Yep, all good.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, good afternoon or evening and morning to everyone. I saw a few people on the chat, and boy, you guys are hailing from everywhere. So it's wonderful and such a privilege to be here with you today. I'm Neil. I'm a developer advocate at Atlassian, which means I advocate on behalf of anyone and everyone who builds things on top of the Atlassian platform. Very glad to join you today. Today we're going to learn about Rovo, Atlassian's latest AI innovation, as well as Rovo agents, which help your teams work faster, smarter, and more effectively. I'm also going to give a little bit of a background on Forge, Atlassian's cloud app development platform, which is how we build custom Rovo agents with code. So if you're not familiar with Rovo or you're not familiar with Forge, that's quite all right. By the end of this session, you should have a grasp on what Rovo is, or a better grasp, the role that agents play, as well as why and how you can build your own agents. At the end, we'll do some Q&A, as Brendan said, and if you have any questions. Just side note, I cannot see the screen with the chat, so I'm not ignoring you. I told Brendan before this that he can feel free to interrupt me at any time.
Yeah, we'll be watching the chat there and
awesome.
Chime up with any urgent questions. Very
cool. All right, so here's the agenda. I'm going to start with a high-level overview of Rovo. Just background also. I'm more of a developer and technical, so sometimes I don't consider myself a great like product spokesperson. So I apologize if I kind of skew more towards the technical side, but I'll do my best. After that, I'm going to give a brief overview of Forge. Then I'm going to kind of hop into some demos of using Rovo, building agents with Rovo, like we're going to batch with Forge. And if time allows, I'm actually going to take a Rovo agent example app that we have on developer.atlassian.com, and it has a little bit more of an advanced. And then again, we'll wrap up with some Q&A. Okay, so let's start with an overview. So let's start by answering the question, if you don't know what Rovo is. What is Rovo? So Rovo is an AI-powered product that elevates teamwork through powerful human collaboration, transforming how teams discover and use organizational knowledge. And Rovo, the product, is based on three value pillars, as we call them: find, learn, and act. And in the first pillar, find, Rovo unlocks a world-class enterprise search engine. It helps you quickly find knowledge that you need to get work done. It helps you find information easier and faster across all Atlassian products, connected SaaS apps, as well as proprietary data sources. So, for example, instead of searching, let's say you're within Confluence and you use the search, it's not going to search just within Confluence. Imagine that search that you type in will search across Jira, Confluence, and Bitbucket, but also other platforms you use like Google Drive or Slack, Microsoft SharePoint, Teams, GitHub. Rovo integrates very well with those to provide search across those. The second pillar is learn, and Rovo provides a rich set of AI tools that help you learn and gain insights from the most complex information and data sets. Rovo Chat is part of this learn pillar, so that's like the chat interface, and it serves as an expert in your company. When you chat with this thing, it knows the people, the projects, the way that things work within your organization. And the last pillar is act, where Rovo agents, AI teammates help you move your work forward. So agents take knowledge and help you turn those things into actions. Agents are like experts at streamlining complex processes, solving challenging problems, and managing repetitive tasks. So out of the three pillars, find, learn, and act, today we're going to be focused on that last one, act. We're going to focus on agents, both out-of-the-box agents, things that just kind of come with Rovo, and then the focus here is building custom agents. So if you haven't used Rovo, don't worry about it. But I'm actually going to have some live demo and look using it. So if you haven't seen it before, or maybe you've only seen like maybe a brief YouTube demo or something, we're going to get hands-on with it. So when using Rovo, there are 20 agents, or even more than that, available like out of the box to you, and about 15 other ones, I think maybe 17 now, that were built by Atlassian Marketplace partners, and the list is only growing. And these agents help you with common use cases across like any organization or industry you're in. And I think that they're also intended to provide you with inspiration for what's possible when it comes to AI Rovo agents. And I say inspiration because Rovo gives you the capability of creating your own custom agents. And there are an infinite number of possibilities, allowing you to make your own agents to solve your company's unique and specific use cases. And there are two ways to build custom agents. You can build them with code or without code. And so Rovo comes with a UI-driven agent builder tool. So you can create your own Rovo agents in a no-code fashion. If you're familiar with like the term prompt engineering, you just provide it with prompts. And really anyone can build an agent. They can be shared with anyone within your organization. And again, doesn't require any kind of coding. But for more complex or like tailored use cases, we also provide a platform for building custom agents with code. And you do that using Forge. So not only does Forge enable third-party marketplace developers to create custom agents that they might put on like Atlassian Marketplace, but it also allows you and your company, and maybe even solution partners, to create agents that are custom built just for your company use. Completely private, right? Like they're not published anywhere. And in fact, I have just a really a demo from my colleague Dugald, who wasn't going to be here today in person, but he's Sydney based and he's also on vacation. So I asked him, hey, that thing that you were going to present at the Vancouver ACE, could you just kind of put together a little video? And so he's going to introduce us to building custom agents, showing us the difference between the no-code agent builder and building custom agents with Forge. And then after that, I'm going to kind of dive into some live demos. So let me get this queued up and show you the video in a moment. Okay.
Wanted to create a Rovo source.
There we go.
Hello. Have you ever wanted to create a Rovo agent that is able to utilize data from a custom data source? Or maybe one that includes some sort of logic that is easier to code than to describe in a prompt? Or maybe you want to sell your agent in Atlassian's marketplace. If so, this is where building agents using Forge can help. Forge is Atlassian's development platform that makes building and running apps easy. Okay, so let's take a look at the agenda. We'll start by taking a look at some of the basic concepts of Rovo agents. We'll just be using the out-of-the-box capabilities during this stage. We'll dig into the details of some of the code to explain how that agent works. We'll then take a look at some of the more advanced concepts of Rovo agents and the code, because some concepts may not be completely obvious if you're exploring this on your own. And finally, I'll provide some resources to help you go on and create Rovo agents on your own. So what are Rovo agents? You can think of them as customizations of Rovo's AI capabilities that are designed to perform specific kinds of tasks. The goal is to help users move work forward by utilizing Rovo's natural language capabilities. Rovo agents are useful for many kinds of text-heavy processing, where there is some kind of pattern to the work that needs to be performed. But perhaps the best way to think of Rovo agents is as virtual teammates.
Have you met the newbie? How does he know so much about everything? It's his first day.
Yeah, he's amazing. He just wrote a blog post for me. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it was nothing.
So I need to write a job description for a new role on my team, and we'll need interview questions for the candidates.
Done and done.
Wait, what?
We need to revise taglines and build social posts for the new campaign.
Be right back. Okay, I've dropped some ideas for those in the chat.
Okay.
You should make sure that code doesn't introduce any security risks. Like this.
Boom. Thanks, newbie.
Hey.
Wait, there's more newbies?
Yeah, there's lots of them, and they help us get things done much faster.
Wow, we're ready to launch 3 months ahead of schedule. How's that even possible?
The newbies. Couldn't have done it without them.
Without who?
Here's a conceptual overview of Rovo. Rovo leverages Atlassian Intelligence capabilities to provide AI processing on customer data. Internally, this data is organized with lots of relationships between the data, which we collectively call the teamwork graph. Rovo agents can be configured to focus on specific areas of this data to avoid being distracted by irrelevant information. There are two broad types of Rovo agents, but note that many will exhibit characteristics of both. Agents often involve distilling and organizing data. Agents focused on quality and performance. Browse through these agents to discover the ones that will help with those. This is where the Rovo agents built with Forge show up. There are a number of locations within Jira and Confluence where users can use Rovo agents. The chat sidebar is where you can have an interactive conversation with an agent. When editing a Jira issue description or Confluence page, you Rovo to help craft the content. And agents can also be used in automation rules. Rovo provides a chat experience that allows users to have interactive conversations with Rovo's AI. Start by asking a question or entering an instruction, and continue to build on the conversation with further questions and instructions. Agents are often configured with conversation starters. These are initial questions or instructions which show up in the UI and can be selected to simulate the start of a conversation. Every agent has a prompt. This is where the behavior of the agent is defined. Good prompts define aspects such as the agent's goals, character, knowledge sources, and actions that the agent can take. Prompt engineering is a skill which takes practice. It's like coding, but instead of using traditional coding languages like JavaScript, the code is in natural language. Okay, so now we're going to create an agent with Forge. But first, why would you want to when you can create agents directly in Jira and Confluence? There are a few reasons, such as the ability to augment the agent with logic in the Forge app, connect to bespoke data sources, keep the prompt of your agent private, and distribute your agent in the Atlassian marketplace. This diagram illustrates the relationship between Forge agents and Rovo. Forge agents define the prompt and other aspects such as the conversation starters, just like regular agents, but they can also define actions that Rovo invokes during the processing of AI requests. These actions typically involve making API calls to manipulate data or to retrieve data for the AI to operate on. To create a new Forge app that provides a Rovo agent, simply enter Forge Create into the Forge CLI and then select the Rovo agent template. Your agent will then be created within a few seconds. After creating the app, you need to deploy it using the Forge deploy command. Then you need to install the app into a workspace using the Forge install command. After installing the app, any further changes to it requires a redeployment using the Forge deploy command again, so the overall development workflow looks a bit like this. To test the app's agent, open the Rovo agent using the Browse Agents UI and select it. Given it's an agent you're developing, you'll probably want to click the agent's star icon to make it a favorite so that you don't have to find it next time using the Browse Agents UI. Either click one of the conversation starters or enter a specific question or instructions to invoke it. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the code that was created. The app's manifest contains a lot of the app's definition, including the agent. Expanding the Rovo agent module section, we can see various aspects such as the agent's name, description, and prompt. The prompt is where you will typically need to spend most of your time, as it can get quite complex. The Rovo agent module is also where the conversation starters are defined. The agent's prompt can reference actions that Rovo must invoke in order to manipulate or retrieve data. A single agent can utilize multiple actions. Actions are like functions in traditional programming languages. Each action can define inputs that Rovo must provide when it is invoked. In this particular case, the input is a message that the user is requesting to log. Inputs are like function parameters in traditional programming languages. The title and the description of each input is for Rovo's benefit and won't be displayed to users. Rovo matches the user's request with the prompt to work out how to fill out the action inputs. It's a bit like magic, but one important tip is to be consistent with your terminology. Each action specifies an action verb, which describes what kind of operation it can perform. Note that the message logger app should probably use the trigger action verb rather than get. To avoid potentially problematic scenarios, automation rules won't invoke actions defined with either the create, update, or delete action verb. To create a good prompt, make sure you define what the role of the agent is, the job it needs to perform, and any additional context necessary to focus on the correct outcome. A simple example illustrating all three aspects is as follows. The role: you are a content marketing writer. The job: your job is to help people generate ideas for marketing assets and blogs, like social media posts. Here are a few guidelines to help with your agent creation. As with previous guidelines, they equally apply to user-defined agents and Forge agents. Most of the guidelines boil down to ensuring the agent is defined as clearly and unambiguously as possible. If your agent becomes too complex, it will probably suffer from reliability issues, so you should probably look for ways to split it into multiple agents. Also, make sure you test your agent with a wide range of scenarios. Additionally, make sure you design your agent so that it can be used in different contexts, or at least it is clear what context it's supposed to be used in. When using the agent in a chat context, how does it behave when the user is viewing a Jira board versus a Jira work item? Does the agent work in the editor? What happens if the agent is included in an automation rule? When an agent's action is invoked, the payload provided to the action contains identifiers like an issue key, which can be used to work out what the current context is. Most importantly, you should test your agent in all of these situations. Creating Rovo agents with Forge is a pretty amazing kind of app development. You can accomplish a lot with a small amount of code, but being a relatively new kind of technology, there is still a lot for us all to learn. Good luck with your development. I'll be interested to see how you get on.
All right. Well, thanks, Dugald. Let me get back to my prezo. Okay, one moment. Okay. Hey, Bernie, can you verify that my screen share is working again?
Yes. So we see the
All right.
next item on the agenda.
Awesome. So now we have a high-level overview of what Forge is and the role that agents play. I'm going to give a brief overview of what Forge is now, because for some of you that might not know what Forge is, this might be helpful. So Forge is Atlassian's serverless development platform for building and running secure, reliable, scalable apps that extend the functionality of Atlassian cloud products. It's very different from previous generation development platforms because when you build an app using Forge, it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. So, of course, we're here to talk about building Rovo agents with Forge, but what kind of other apps can you build with Forge? Practically anything you can dream up of. So I'm going to speak very broadly about the types of apps in terms of the capabilities. And the first type of app you can build is probably something you might see in the marketplace today, like a UI-based app. With Forge, you can extend Jira or Confluence's product UI very easily. If you want to build an app that enhances Jira's UI by adding pages, sections, or adding some new information to the Jira issue view, this is what I refer to as a UI-based app. If you have any experience building like scripts or automations, this is another use case for Forge where it's great for performing complex automations. So a Forge app can perform tasks in the background after being triggered by a product event, like a value changing on an issue or a page. You can also schedule tasks in a Forge app to be executed or run on a fixed time interval. If you've ever had ideas of building an app that reacts to something that happens to a Jira issue or the Confluence page, for example, you could build a Forge app that does that. That could operate completely in the background. You can also build integrations with Forge. So for example, if you wanted to build a bridge or a pipeline between, let's say, Jira and an external product or platform that your company uses, you can do that with Forge. Your Forge app can call APIs on an external system, like a CRM. I'm going to give a demo of that later on. And maybe an external build deploy platform, for example. You can even set up a Forge app to receive API calls from authorized outside systems. Some of the most popular apps on the marketplace today are integrations. If you're an admin or like a Scrum Master, workflow validators are probably something that you know very well. So you can build a Forge app that can create custom validations in your team's Jira workflows. For example, let's say you have a Kanban board and you'd like to enforce some strict work in progress limits. You can build a validator in Forge that will restrict an issue from being transitioned to work in progress when a certain limit is reached, as opposed to just the column changing colors. You can also build post functions and conditions that are powered by Forge. And lastly, what we're going to be talking about today, you can build a custom Rovo agents with Forge, right? So if you wanted to, if you're familiar with Rovo, you can, like I had mentioned, you can build agents with just prompts in a UI-based, in a very UI-based, like natural language way. But you can also build even more complex custom agents with Forge, where you might want to be a little bit more strict and enforce like logic-based rules in code that you might not be able to accomplish with natural language interfacing with a large language model. So quickly, like, who uses Forge? So developers, after all. I mean, Forge is an app development platform, but also like admins and power users use Forge to build apps just for their organization. And more, we're seeing end users, like they find it's pretty easy to start building something out of the box. They have an idea of something that they want to improve, like how their team works or how they work within Atlassian products. They're kind of they're discovering that Forge is a great tool for that. Partners, both solution partners and marketplace partners, like more marketplace apps are being built on Forge than ever before. And for me, it's very important. Atlassian team members themselves, we've built thousands of apps on Forge that are used internally by employees. And you can build Forge apps, of course, for Jira and Confluence, but you want to build a Forge app for Bitbucket, Jira Service Management, Compass, and of course today, even for Rovo. So if you want to see some like great examples of essential power tools that are built for customers with some fantastic UI integrations, automations, and now even AI-powered apps and even custom Rovo agents, make sure you check out the marketplace for some additional inspiration. So before I dive into a demo of building a Rovo agent with Forge from scratch, I'm going to quickly go over some key concepts that in Dugald's demo, he covered some of the stuff, but maybe this will help you have a little bit more context as I go through my demo, which will be helpful for you that have never ever seen Forge. So Dugald was typing in commands like Forge create, Forge deploy, etc. And he was doing that through something called the Forge CLI, or the command line interface. And this is a tool that you'll need to work when you're working with Forge. You use the CLI to do things like create apps, deploy them to the cloud, and install them on your product instance. If you've already installed the Forge CLI, awesome. But if you haven't done it yet, it only takes a couple minutes to do it. I'll provide some links at the end that show you kind of like the 101 to kind of get started building stuff on Forge. As we go through the exercise, you'll see that you'll get maybe a little bit more familiar with what they do. And so what's actually needed to build a Forge app, or in our case, we're going to build a Forge app that's a custom Rovo agent with Forge. First, an Atlassian account. Create you can go to that's go.atlassian.com/cloud dev. If you're building apps on Forge, or it's highly recommended that you don't necessarily build and deploy apps into your company's production instance. I think perhaps there's a little bit of leeway when it comes to maybe agents, Rovo agents, because they're not as intrusive as to compared to, let's say, changing or adding some custom fields or custom UI components to a Jira issue view. But still highly recommended that if you're kind of just kicking around and building some Forge apps, that you do it on your own sandbox site. All apps are built on JavaScript in Forge, so you'll need the Node.js runtime. Install that. Once Node.js is installed, then you'll install the Forge command line interface, the Forge CLI, and although not required, using a nice code editor like Visual Studio just makes the syntax highlighting really nice and makes your life a lot easier as a developer. I'm going to be using this code editor in my demo. So just to kind of zoom in on those, if you don't have a dev at your own little cloud or test dev instance yet, do URL.
Neil, there's just a question in the chat there. Is Docker no longer required?
Docker is no longer required. Docker's use was primarily around something called the Forge tunnel, and yeah, that's now deprecated. You don't need that at all, even to use the Forge tunnel. Great question though. Nope. So no other requirements. So grab your own personal dev instance, and honestly, it's just a lot of fun to be able to mess around with your own instance and not have to be concerned about messing up the things for the rest of your teammates. Next thing you'll do is I mentioned install Node.js and the Forge CLI. If you go to this URL here, it'll just bring you. It's a shortcut URL to the part of the dev docs that kind of give you step-by-step instructions on exactly how to do this, from beginning to end, as little as a few minutes to maybe as much as 10 minutes to get everything installed. And it works the same whether you're on Mac OS, Linux, or Windows. So I'm going to do a live demo of a very simple agent from scratch in Forge in just a few steps. And the first step is going to be what Dugald had shown is we're going to do a Forge create. We're going to name our agent. It's going to prompt us for a few questions. Name your agent. What, kind of like what template or what product are you building for? So it's going to download a template of an agent app and place it into a brand new folder on our local machine. Do time check here. And so when our app is created, it'll be on my laptop here. And after that, we make some changes. It's time to deploy the app into the cloud. We do that with the command Forge deploy. If you have ever built like cloud apps for outside of Forge, you probably have to deploy it to some kind of hosting provider. This would be the equivalent of that, right? Putting it on a EC2 or like deploying it to Heroku. When you do a Forge deploy, it actually puts it on Atlassian's cloud. It'll do some syntax checking. Everything looks good. It'll bundle up your app, upload it to the cloud. And then the very last step after the Forge deploy is to do a Forge install. And this is the third and final step. This command is going to prompt us for which product we want to install it on, the name of our instance, so our dev or test instance, and then the one that we just, the not your company's instance. And then we'll talk during the live demo. You'll see all of these things in action. All right, so let's try this from scratch. And I think that let me pull up my browser. If you head over to developer.atlassian.com and you just type in Rovo, you'll find like example apps and like introductions, etc. So I'm just going to hop into my command line here, and I'm going to type in Forge create. Oh, one moment. And it's going to prompt us for the name of our app. Let's call this our Vancouver agent. And we're going to use our arrow keys and just go down to Rovo agent in action. And I'm going to choose Rovo agent. So right now it's going to create this app locally on my machine. It's going to register the app with who I'm logged in as in my Forge CLI. And so if I go into Vancouver agent folder, you can kind of see like what's inside of it. I'm going to open this folder up in a code editor now. That one. Here we go. And I'll try to make these fonts bigger. So this is what it downloaded. It's a template of an app. And there's this thing called a manifest, which is basically the blueprint for our app. And in it is the name of our app. Again, a template of a description. So this is called the Vancouver agent. This is an agent for helping employees, helping team members stay positive. Prompt. So let's tell it what this thing is. You are an agent that helps team members to stay positive and happy. Let's see. What can you do? You can create Forge logs. You will provide inspirational quotes to team members. Let's see, what else will they do? You will not provide medical advice. We don't want them doing that. And then if a user tells us about how they're feeling, log the message into Forge logs. Okay. So conversation starters, help me get motivated. So this is what we call the manifest, again, the kind of like the blueprint, and it has one action, and it's really just logging it to the app's like logs. The source code for this is quite simple. it doesn't really do anything at all, because this is essentially, I guess, maybe perhaps equivalent to building an app with no code, because we're just providing some code here, this manifest. So to show you how this works, let's finish the other steps. So one moment. Go to my commands here. And then I'm going to do we did a forge create. Next step is a forge deploy. And this is, again, the equivalent of uploading our, putting it into the Atlassian cloud. I mentioned that Forge is a serverless app development platform. I guess this would be the serverless part, because you don't have to host anything. It just, any kind of Forge app you build, it will just be deployed into the cloud. And when you install it, it'll execute in the cloud as well. So this might take just about maybe 10 seconds or so. And the last step after deploying it is we need to install this thing onto one of our instances. So I'm going to type in Forge install, and let me get the URL of my test instance. There it is. I'm going to install this on Jira and type in the name of my dev instance here. This is my personal testing instance. All right, so so let's head over to test instance here, and let's hop into a project. This is all just test data, by the way. And let's go to our chat. And so if you haven't seen Rovo yet, this is Rovo, a chat interface here. And as Dugald mentioned, there's a whole bunch of agents out of the box. And so work item planners, decision director, bug report assistant, these are the ones that kind of came out of the box. And we're looking for ours, which is the Vancouver agent, which is not, let's see. Wait for it. Let's see here. This is the beauty of live demo, folks. Let's reload all this. Vancouver agent, there you are. An agent for testing Forge agent functionality. Okay, so here we are. This is our agent that we just deployed and created and deployed. I need some inspiration. I'm feeling a bit down. I'm sorry to hear you feeling down. Here's a little quote that might help lift your spirits. Believe you can, and you're halfway there. And the reason why I did that is because, again, in our code, we had told it to explicitly do that, right? We said provide inspirational quotes to our team members. This is, some basic prompt engineering. This would be no different if you were to hop into your favorite LLM like ChatGPT or Google Gemini and kind of prompt the LLM and tell it what you want it, how you want it to behave and how you want it to perform. Well, we just did that. And let's say I am feeling great. And let's see what this does, if it logged it anywhere. If so, please write a message. Yes. Yes, please log that I'm feeling great. Now it actually invoked the action of logging a message. So where in the heck is that stuff kept? If I were to go to developer.atlassian.com/apps and click on my Vancouver agent and go to my logs. This is, by the way, this is kind of like a console interface for like all the apps you've ever created or deployed. You can see where it's installed. And if I take a look at my logs here, you can see that I actually logged this information. And again, this is a very rudimentary action of sending something to the Forge logs. Again, just kind of a demo. Mm-hmm.
We had a couple of questions come in while you were putting all that together. Thank you, Neil.
Sure.
but how hard is it to put a Rovo agent into an existing Forge app?
Into an existing Forge app?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's not terribly difficult. In fact, I think we have documentation that talks about that specifically on developer.atlassian.com. But for the if you were to go to and I guess maybe for context for other folks, if you probably maybe have seen some blog posts or some announcements around existing apps that have added Rovo functionality, so you can kind of interact with an existing app that you've built. Yeah, it's just a matter of adding in the manifest. I don't want to get too, but in the manifest, you would actually add this Rovo agent module to your manifest. I guess what you could do is just kind of, I think that there is a docs page specific for this, but maybe to sum it up, is as easy as kind of adding an additional module to your app, your app's manifest.
Mm-hmm. Is it more best practice to have Rovo agents being a sort of solo function Forge app type?
Not necessarily. I think it depends on what your use case and what you're trying to do. I've built custom agents on my work instance to do certain things that are just very singular purpose, particularly around content creation. But yeah, I don't think that there's honestly it's so brand new in terms of what the of the capabilities, and we're just exploring use cases. We just finished Codegeist, our annual global hackathon, and yeah, I mean, I can't tell you. I mean, I saw a handful of very interesting and very unique use cases that I've never thought of before that other people came up with. So I think the world is your oyster, and it comes to how you want to architect or design these things. So I don't think there's just one necessary way of saying that this is the best way to do it. But I mean, yeah, I think it's start simple and keep it very specific, even as Dugald said, right?
Okay.
Don't try to boil the ocean have it do all of the things. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few more questions coming in, but I want to make sure you have time to finish any other demo elements before we...
Yeah, I think the big thing I just want to maybe go over is if you go to developer.atlassian.com, you'll see on the left-hand side here example apps, and of course, there's all kinds of apps, ones for Jira, etc. And it's really easy to kind of clone them and use them. And I kind of wanted to go just through one of those. And I like this one because it's pretty simple. It's also in Confluence, and it just basically will, grab some images from Google based on the content of your, whatever Confluence page you're on. And so this, in short, all of our example apps go off to Bitbucket repos. And if you're not familiar with this stuff and it's oh my gosh, this looks so absolutely confusing, it's not. Just you can if you're not familiar with Git, you could just download the repository, and then this is a zip file. Unzip it, and then just read the directions in this README, and it tells you step by step on how what you need to do. So in this case, clone the thing, go into the folder, install it, register, deploy. And so you saw how I used Forge Create. If you use Forge Register on an existing app like these sample apps, it'll register the app as your own. And I'm just going to hop into this as an example. So I downloaded, I followed the directions to a T, and I downloaded it, and I did a Forge Register, and it created, it was just like a Forge Create, except when you go into the manifest, it created a new app ID here, which is a unique ID. And so let's just deploy this thing. And I guess the gist here, what I'm trying to get at, is that there are just a large growing collection of sample apps that you can, whether you're building a custom agent for Rovo, or whether you want to learn how to build a Confluence app or a Jira app, the sample apps help you to kind of quickly take an existing project, make it your own, modify it. You can hop into the source code and see what the heck this thing is doing, and just try it. I think that's probably one of the the best the takeaways here for this from this prezo is when it comes to Forge is just even if you're not terribly familiar with it, I think that there's enough beginner and intermediate level things that are very step-by-step, documented step-by-step, that makes it really, really easy. So in this case, check this out. we will do, I already got my API key. Let's go and install this. Do Confluence, name of my instance. Okay. And here, by the way, if you notice, it says, hey, this app is going to exchange data with the following URLs, because if you look at the manifest, it actually has some permissions here. It's going to pull some stuff from some API helper. And oh, I already have this thing installed. All right, awesome. So if we go into our chat, choose a different agent. Let's see if I have it here. What did I call this thing?
Hey, Neil, are we seeing the screen that you mean to be sharing?
I don't know.
We're still seeing the commercial, like the Jira project screen. Have you been?
Oh yeah, I think that
something else.
Bevy might have frozen. So let me unshare and reshare.
Perfect.
Sorry about that. Yeah, sure. Is this? Can you see this one?
The browse agents.
Yeah. Well, sorry about that, guys. I didn't realize that it was frozen. Anyhow, the idea here is that being able to grab, let me see, like, to grab sample apps and just add them is really, it's really simple. And of course, it's completely going to demo fail because I had this one installed already. But let me quickly hop back out and wrap this up. So if you haven't, I know I was kind of popping in and out of things, but developer docs. Everything that I talked about is at developer.atlassian.com. If you've not been there, head over there and check it out. As I mentioned, you have access to just all you need to do is like search for Rovo on developer.atlassian.com, and all the relevant page links will come up. And I highly recommend that just head over to the example apps for Rovo. And again, it's all step-by-step instructions on exactly how to register it as your own, make modifications if you want to, deploy it and install it, etc. And next steps, I should say a recap to really, if you're like, man, this looks really interesting, I want to get started. And maybe there's a chance that you don't have Rovo on your company's cloud instance. You can get it for free on your own cloud instance on step 1 there. So just get your own dev instance, install Node.js and the Forge CLI, head over to the docs and just do a whole lot of exploration. If you're really new to this, head over to the Forge Quest, which is kind of like a fun interactive way to learn. And then we actually have a separate community just for developer kinds of questions at community.developer.atlassian.com, separate from the user, the very large, much larger user community at community.atlassian.com. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the developer. We have a Atlassian developer YouTube channel where we post all kinds of things, not technical videos, but also like roundups of things that are happening in the Forge developer ecosystem, etc. So there's lots of resources for you to kind of get started, and a whole community of people that are more than happy to help you at community.developer.atlassian.com.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Neil. We do have a few more questions in the chat here that we can try and field. I know we've got about 10 minutes or so.
Sure.
Is there a limited list of actions that can be added to Forge agents, or can we invent our own?
So when we say actions, like, there's a limited things you can do. I mean, you can have an action to actually make API calls to either external services. Like in that example, it was making external service API call to some, Google image search API, to product level API calls to Confluence, to Jira, etc. So you're not really limited to what those actions can do, if that was maybe the question. Yep.
Okay. Can agents retrieve content or interact with content from attachments?
From attachments, yes. I mean, by using the product APIs. So I didn't cover this, but if you go to developer.atlassian.com and you go to the Jira Cloud documentation or the Confluence Cloud documentation, you'll see that there are API calls to do pretty much 99.999% of what you can do in the product. You can do, you can retrieve, update, create, delete data with the API. So into that question about attachments, yes, of course, that you have the context of the page that you're on or the issue that you're on, and then you would make another API call to fetch that information. And in fact, that image sample app is aware of the Confluence page that you're on. It has that context, and it actually fetches that page's data in order to find relevant images to present to you that you might want to insert on your page. So yes, attachments are just another piece of metadata that you can query with the APIs.
All right. What happens when you ask this agent something medical related?
That's a great one. Well, when in my little the reason I asked that question because in the manifest I said, hey, don't provide any medical advice.
Exactly.
It probably wouldn't have anyway. But I think in my imagined demo, it was going to be more explicit about setting it to the proper URL to get well care kind of information from your company, etc. I don't know. You have to test it to see what the limits are. I'm not sure if you're that kind of person that goes to ChatGPT to see what it won't do. But probably some of the same rules apply in terms of anything that could lead to people causing harm to themselves. I imagine it is not going to be very lenient to do something like that.
Right. There was a question about where the quotes, the inspirational quotes were coming from. It's whether it was Jira or Confluence. I think it's a wider internet, but
yeah. So it's from the wider, from the wider training, from what's behind the large language model, right? So again, I think it's one of those things you just kind of have to explore. So there is, you can be very explicit about where it will pull and not pull data from, but generally speaking, all large language models that you've probably been interacting with in the past year and a half, 2 years, I mean, they're trained on very large sets of data. So there are some kind of general knowledge data that's out there. If you wanted to kind of keep it scoped down to, let's say, the context of the page that you're on, the space that you're in, the project that you're in, you can do that. You just have to be very explicit.
All right. Do you guys share what the foundation large language model that is behind Rovo is?
I don't have an answer to that question. I'm not sure what we publish or what we don't publish around that.
Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
And Forge, Rovo, sort of what is the current costing around
so
that?
Forge is included across all of our cloud products for free. You don't have to. It's not a product add-on, so it's kind of inherited and it's there. In terms of Rovo, I think that is that is a premium. That is like an add-on.
I think it's got its own pricing, but I don't know off the top of my head. But
neither do I. But I think that's really easily findable on Atlassian.com. Yep.
Okay.
But from a testing dev instance standpoint, I don't think that there is any you're not going to be charged for it. At least not in trial mode for sure. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ariel has posted the pricing link there in the chat.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Ariel. And so I think I have covered everybody's question that hasn't been answered. There's a few around whether server or data center was available for Rovo. It is cloud only.
Forge is also cloud only. That's a very, very common question. Absolutely. And it's in the cloud.
But if there's any additional questions, otherwise we can wrap it there. Just a reminder of some of the upcoming things. So I will just finish off with a thank you to everybody there that was able to attend. Again, we've got that in-person event coming up here in Vancouver, February 12th. Greatly appreciate you coming out. We will post both the YouTube video that was included as part of the presentation as well as the presentation in the whole, so that you can refer back to that, look for that on the page in the next couple of days. And if you have any feedback, please share that with us. You can grab a QR code right now there to send some emails or give us some feedback as to what else we can be doing to make these events helpful to you. But thank you very much to Neil. Thank you very much for everybody for coming, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone.